Greetings Internet, DDA here, and welcome to another deck profile video. Hey, this is take 2 of Conflict Roshi here with Kelly Dennis. Not Kevin Dennis, Kelly Dennis. How you doing, Kelly?
Hey, not bad. Been better, but I'm alive.
Yeah, so this is the second take that we're doing in this video. We're happy to bring this video to you guys. Kelly is one video wiser, one video better at recording videos.
The deck you're looking at is Conflict Roshi, and if I were to put it in 2 words, hyper control.
Conflict Roshi hyper control. So that's great. So now let's check out the list. All right, so now let's scan over the list real quick.
Okay, so you see the list here. You're gonna see a couple things: moderate level of events, small block package, and moderate to low level of attacks built into the deck. And then when you get into the planning, it's very heavy on the planning planning side. Obvious synergies with level 1 and 2. Overall, one of the big things here, you see 7 balls, so that immediately says DPV deck, and it also has an element of MPPV as well as survival, which is typically through attrition. But overall, as you can see, it's a triple victory deck, and objectives. I mean, the deck is built in a way where I can be flexible depending on the matchup, and depending on that matchup, I can kind of cruise along to one of those victory conditions rather effectively.
All right, so now let's go over the attacks.
We're looking at the attacks. Like I said, moderate to low volume attacks. It's a control deck, hyper control as I described it. So the attacks
it's mostly life card beats, is what I'm saying.
Everything here is life card beats. The only stage damage here is backstrike, but that's there for obvious reasons. But so working from left to right, we got Black Capture there. This card is kind of typically in and out of my deck depending on the meta. Lately, I've been seeing a lot of ball decks, especially Radiant decks in my local area. So this went back in just for tech against that.
I'm surprised you only play 1 copy of this, man.
Yeah, well, one thing you're going to see as a theme, I guess, a theme in the deck, there are a lot of 1 copies. The reason for that is the deck can tutor, the deck can sculpt hands very well. So, for example, backstrike, I play 1 copy of a card, and I can go right to it. I would love to go to 2 though. It's kind of on the chopping block along with Optic. They're both there for Radiant tech pretty much, and just additional ball control with Optic. And then next you'll see Black Swirl, one of the better control cards in the game. If you're counting cards pretty frequently like I am, you can usually predict what's in your opponent's hand, or if they VTP, or if you're on level 3 where I can see their hand, I can shut off their best card. So
yeah, for sure. Black Swirl is so strong in Roshi. Yeah,
plus 2 anger on the hit.
Yeah,
next, you'll see, speaking of 2 anger, Black Overhead Burst, one of the best burst anger cards in the game. It's kind of at a hefty cost, but the deck recovers stages so well that it's really not that much of a drawback. 2 anger right away, and additional ball control on the hit effect. I can kick cards like Black Command and Black Declaration out of my hand to use the crit effect. I kind of wish I put them side by side, Black Energy Web and Black Defensive Burst. They're just for additional control. Depending on the matchup, they're kind of like a pseudo Time is Warrior's tool that's locking your opponent out from doing anything in combat. And then I can do shenanigans like Black Scout Maneuver, as Didier would know, Black Surgeon Technique, other like non-attack effects. And then Sinister Choke. This card's seeing a little bit less play. Card's still amazing. Unpreventable 5 life card damage. Fantastic, and it's a wall breaker. Shake. And then lastly, Backstrike, best name card in the game. That's it.
yeah. This is the card that really just enables you to play those 1-ofs like you're saying. And it can allow you to get a ball as well.
It can. One great thing from my prior builds was comboing this card with Defiant Challenge, which is no longer in the deck for purposes I'll explain later. But
Vegeta.
Yeah, and Trunks.
And one thing that I'm surprised about, you don't run Pesky Barrage in here. You did for a little bit.
I did. I mean, if I'm running Defiant, Pesky goes in automatically. It's because it's a tutor. But without Defiant, I don't really see a need for Pesky. I mean, it's great to have that double attack to push extra damage, but it just can't make the cut with Defiant not being in here.
I gotcha. All right, well, great. So now let's go over the events and blocks.
Here we have the blocks. First thing you're going to notice right away, I play very few.
Yeah, right.
There's only 9 natural blocks, and the reason for that is level 1 and 2 have very strong prevention effects. Obviously, level 1 putting dead cards into play slows the game down early, and then level 2 kind of maintains that slow play until you get to level 3. Only 3 physical blocks. The deck recovers stages very well with cards like Backstrike, Black Power Up, leveling quite often. So stage recovery is very, very high. Cheating a little bit on physical blocks is okay. I adjust them routinely with the meta. Next, you're going to see my energy block package, 3 corruption. It's primarily a 3 over a 2 resistance because the anti-anger is so valuable in matchups with Vegeta. They're very difficult matchups because of Final Flash. You have Gallic Gun, I can't prevent that. Those things really hurt my deck, and when Vegeta starts getting to level 3 and 4 and doing those shenanigans, it's really difficult to come back from that. So corruption is really in here to for the anti-anger, and then resistance you have the endurance 3, and it raises anger, so it's all around strong. Yep, this time don't even talk about that.
There it is.
All right, so now we have the events. First thing you see here, Black Command. It did get nerfed, and I feel they probably nerfed it harder than it should have been, but it is still a very strong card.
You say that as a Roshi player because you missed the shuffle, the deck shuffle.
Either way, it's still a free 2 anger. Now with the nerf, it's an optional effect. So I recall in the past, the auto shuffle 2 anger was kind of handcuffing at times, but the May effect is actually a little pretty valuable now. In case I want to camp on a certain level, I don't need to pitch that to gain 2 anger.
Yeah,
it actually
you can
helps.
also stay on 3, you don't want to go to 4.
Yeah. Oh my God. If I'm on 3,
you did that against me.
Yeah, strong card. Scout Maneuver. It's fantastic. It's at a 3 of because I want to see it more frequently. 1 earlier, 2, and 3 is having a third one is just fantastic. Top targets for that are typically Sinister Choke, and depending on the matchup, a Gallic Gun or Final Flash or a Blue Slash.
I'll dig your grave, maybe.
Yeah, I guess. Typically against Broly, I want to scout their blocks, so I can spam defensive burst a lot. So,
okay.
That's typically the go-to card there. But I mean, Didier, you can speak to it. Scout. I draw them like a demon.
Yeah. I backstrike for them a lot too.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Seeing these early game is near. If I see it early in my hand, I almost want to enter immediately, just to nuke my opponent's best card. But yeah, fantastic. I'm running 2 spheres. I think that's a good number. It's in there just attack unleashed. These Namek decks running around play a high volume of events. It's necessary right now.
For sure.
And then Tug, their top allies I can't stand. Roshi ally is probably the most crippling. Just because I can't get to my answers because I can't get into my live deck, and I can't nuke my opponent's answers with Surgeon Technique and Scout. But yeah, Roshi ally, Yajirobe ally hurts a big, and then Nappa as well. But that's what Tug's there.
One thing I see no confrontation in here, so you got to comment on that. Why no confrontation?
I've never been a big fan of confrontation. I love stare down, but not confro. I don't like putting cards back into my opponent's deck. The meta's starting to slow down. I was running it when Broly was at its hype, because it pretty much acted as a block to their best attack.
Right.
I just don't like it. More Vegeta is another card that can either be not used because of Final Flash. It can be sphered. But yeah.
Great. Well, so now let's go over the planning cards.
All right. So what we got here, we got the planning cards. There are a lot.
As you would expect in Roshi.
And the first thing you're probably thinking, oh, you're going to draw dead a lot. Well, it's fine. I don't care. Level 1, I can put them in play. They act as a block. The first card I'm going to get into, Black Power Up, that card's phenomenal seeing that early. It's such a safety blanket if I draw early when entered upon. Just put it into play, act as a block, and just dip out of combat.
It's also like a win condition on level 3.
Yeah, the Black Power Up loop is strong. It's the biggest stranglehold, slow tempo effect in the game, in my opinion. But so enough about Black Power Up. I can go on for days. Searching Technique, we got 3. Fantastic card. It's similar to Scout, but however, I have a little more flexibility in what I can select, obviously, with that. A more underrated effect and strongest effect of this card, other than the banishment, I can scope out their deck to make my Scout call more
Oh,
efficient.
yeah, for sure. That's a huge element, like the combo between Black Scout Maneuver and Black Searching Technique. Very strong, yeah.
There's no worse feeling in this deck than whiffing on a Scout. So,
For sure.
very strong. Next, we got Black Declaration. Prior sets, I was only running 2. I put a third one in, and I think that was the biggest change that I've made with this deck. It enables ball control, it enables the DBV victory condition, and on level 2, it acts as a free block every turn. As long as I don't use it, fine, attack me. I'll pull it back to my hand and then put it back into play with my mastery. Next, we've got Slumber. Not much I can say about this card. Roshi has been a powerhouse since he entered the game. This card can sculpt hands.
Set up DVV, can set up everything. And the discard banishing is like often overlooked, and that's extremely powerful portion of the card.
It's so strong. But like in the last set where Cooler was big, Supernova is such a pain in the ass, and this card nullifies it.
Yeah.
As well as Piccolo's weighted clothing when Piccolo was still dominant.
Yeah.
So we have VTP. It's a staple in any control deck. VTP for time, VTP again for time, or level 1 VTP for a black power up. That typically people kind of scratch their head like, what are you getting black power up for? But on level 1, it works. Gets me out of combat. And then we have Dragon Radar. As you'll see in a second, I run all 7 Dragon Balls. Dragon Radar, staple, tutor, whatever. Not much more I can say.
Yeah.
I kind of take it back. The third Black Declaration is the second best thing I've done with the deck. The best thing is Black Smoothness Thrill being unrestricted, and having it at a 2 of is just fantastic. My local group has kind of a joke that I draw this thing first turn nearly every single game, and having it as a 2 of again, I'm back to that frequency of drawing it first turn. It's great. And then we have Lookout Drill. This is a new ad. It's in there to tech against the Cell matchup. Mill is returning. Mill is certainly returning. Plus it's Rejuve. On level 2, I can kind of bounce it in and out of my hand and Rejuve cards every turn. And then next we have all 7 Dragon Balls. Obviously, you're staring at a win condition right here. It's been out there for debate in prior sets whether to run all 7 balls or not run all 7 balls.
In Black Roshi.
In Black Roshi. I've kind of stuck to my guns. I built the deck with 7 balls from the moment Roshi came out, and it's really paid dividends for me. And
so how do you feel the Conflict Mastery helps you with the control of balls?
Lowers the crit threshold. You have a 25% chance of more likely critting than you had in the past.
Do you see those extra crits?
I do, yeah. I mean, I run a low volume of attacks. Defensive Burst can crit. Black Overhead Burst can crit, along with the hit effects. Black Energy Web has a higher likelihood of critting. Swirl as well. It really puts my opponent on notice because those weaker attacks, they might think twice about blocking because it may come in for a crit. Running all 7 balls has the most flexible tech in the game. I mean, you don't need to run Arm Breaker. You don't need to run Wall Breaker because you have Namek Ball 2. You don't need to run Black Refusal or waste your declarations on the board because you're running Namek 4. And then you have the best card in the game in Namek 7.
All right, so guys, that's it for the list. So now we're going to talk about the general strategy, how you're going to play and succeed with Black Conflict Roshi.
All right, so here we've got level 1 and my mastery. I love this mastery. Just kidding.
It's growing on you. Don't lie. Don't lie.
It is growing on me, but we can talk about that another time.
We'll make a separate video about your relationship with Black Conflict Mastery and how.
Dude, we could totally do that. All right, so here you've got the my level 1 and my mastery. Gonna give you a crash course in the objectives of the deck, how the deck flows, give you some insight into the decisions that are to be made. I will say up front, this is one of the most complex decks in the game.
I would agree to that. It's definitely very complex.
This because of cards like Backstrike, Dragon Radar, Slumber.
Black Scout Maneuver, you need to know its name.
This deck is not forgiving.
Yeah.
There are some plays, it has a low block count, and if you make wrong decisions, you can get stuck in a bad combat.
Plus, when you're playing down balls like ball 3, ball 7, ball 5, if your opponent starts capturing them, it could just flip the entire game.
Yep. Typically, I'll sit down, take a look at what my opponent's playing, and depending on the matchup, I'm going to have a vision of how the game is going to go. So it could go one of 2 ways. One, if my opponent is not really interacting with my board or my play, then typically my objective is to go to level 3 and do this wonderful, wonderful, beautiful card, Black Power Up Loop. But if they're not interacting, then the game's going to go a little bit differently. So early on, I like to keep the game slow. I want to build my board. One thing that you need to keep in mind is Sinister Choke. That card is still played, and that card can swing games.
Right.
And it's one of the number one things that are constantly in my mind when I'm dropping things on the board. And I'll kind of pop these out for you. These are, I would say, these are the biggest planning cards in my deck.
Mm-hmm.
They have a significant effect on me controlling the game and keeping it slow. And the level 1 power is fantastic because I can get these cards into play more efficiently
Right.
and quicker.
Yeah, 'cause
Especially
even if
versus
you draw them on the defense, you're still getting them into play.
yeah. Oh, there's nothing better than an aggro deck entering against me, and I draw power up. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It gains 2 anger, and I'm running cards like Black Command, or Black Overhead Burst, where these planning cards are helping me increase my anger, and these other cards that I just dropped out are getting me to the next stage to level 2.
Right.
And that's where the game kind of transitions. The thing with the level 2, at this point, the game is still going pretty slow. The great thing with this is if I jump to this level, this card right here, Black Declaration, is fantastic on this level. If it's in the play, I jump to 2 by putting a planning card like Black Declaration into play, go to 2, bounce it back to my hand with the advanced parenthetical, and then mastery it back into play. And then with that in play, as long as I don't use it, that acts as a free block, pretty much.
Right.
I can pull it back into my hand to prevent as a defensive action, and then immediately put it back into play with my mastery. That kind of caters to the objective, keep the game slow. I love games that kind of, progress kind of like a chess match. It requires a lot of decision, a lot of thinking, which is my favorite part of this game. That's why I love this game.
So basically, you're playing super passive on the 1 and 2. Your objective is just to only level and possibly do a little bit of damage via Black Scout Maneuver or Black Searching Technique. Kill some key cards and just create this stasis wall until really you get up to the level 3.
Yeah, and I'll pop level 3 out here for you to take a look. Now, I will say, in prior sets, I really abused going up to level 3 and then dipping into the power up loop. But with the new set, there's a higher volume of orange decks out there. So one of the changes in my approach to this deck is I've increased the focus on staying on level 2. There are more decks out there like orange or DDA, your bazillion trunks decks, where you're spamming cards like aggressive sword drill or hidden power drill, quickness drill, things like that. And this level 2 really, really is effective in disrupting your game plan.
It kind of went up and down. We were in an old meta, like the Roshi Cell meta, where there was tons of Roshi, there was tons of Android 20, so there were a huge amount of planning cards. Then when Brawly came out, that all went down. It was all Brawly, all Cooler, all 13. Then the new set came out, and we're kind of 50-50 now. There's an even split of decks that play a high planning count, like the Retribution decks and some of the other decks that you mentioned, this deck. And then there's the other side of the coin where it's you have the Gohan decks, the Cell decks, where you're not going to really be able to interact with the planning cards so much, but you still have those orange decks you got to look out for.
Yeah, for the most part, if my opponent is not interacting with me, you go to 3. And depending on the matchup, it's an orange, is it a trunks deck that's relying on drills in the field? Stay on 2, interrupt their game plan, and spam things like Black Declaration and free block every turn. One great thing on this level is the shuffle effect. Hey, we got this right here, Dragon Radar, and you can pull ball 5 or ball 3. And on level 2, that's 2 anger, along with the other effects that the ball will provide. Let's get the level 2 out here, and we'll put a little more emphasis on the level 3. So the level 3, it's one of the best powers in the game, and it really caters to stabilizing the game and keeping it at a slow tempo. You're at a point where the game should be under your control, and as long as your opponent is not interacting with your discard pile, you're pretty much putting the game on lockdown. Because you can, tutor a VTP, tutor a Slumber, tutor a power up. Most games, if I'm on 3, I'm getting my opponent into that black power up loop. And it's really, really crippling. There have been countless games where I've been down 20, 30 life cards, and I get the power up loop going, and it stabilizes the game, and I come back. One of the best parts of that loop is comboing it with a black capture. In that loop, I'm entering, my opponent draws 3, and combat, they draw 3 more. If you add black capture into the mix, they're banishing 2 cards pretty much with each instance of the loop.
So it's like 8 damage. Basically.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things in the deck. But, I mean, as easy as it sounds, it does have a time limit. At some point, I'm going to exhaust my VTPs. My Slumbers will be gone. My power-ups might be banished, or my time as a warrior's tool might be banished. So, in that instance, it makes me a little vulnerable. More people are playing cards like Devastating Blow, cards that interact with the discard pile. So, I've been putting more emphasis on running the deck while camping on level 1 and 2 because of the defensive capabilities. So it really kind of covers me there.
So as far as like the triple victory nature of your deck, so would you like level 3 is pretty much where you're going to want to decide what avenue of victory you're going, whether you're winning. Well, first of all, let me ask you, how often do you win by survival versus do you win by Dragon Ball versus do you win by MPPV? So like a percentage wise.
So I probably put survival about 50%, Dragon Ball victory 40%, and MPPV 10%. You make a good point. At this point, you do have to make a decision. If you get to level 3, you need to be careful because if you get to level 4, you're probably gonna lose the game unless you're gonna go for MPPV very quickly. Similar to Garlic, his level 4 presents a high liability. You lose your defensive capability and you lose your control. That level 3 provides. But yeah, I mean, it really depends on whether your opponent's interacting with you or not, and then what's left in your deck. If you're on 3, and it comes down to, do you have knee catches? Do you have black commands? Do you have overhead burst? If they're still in your deck, then yeah, you could go to level 4 and MPPV in a pinch. Then again, if those cards are not there, then you really need to be thinking, okay, how am I going to stay on this level, and how am I going to keep control of this game?
Now, would you say you simultaneously go for ball victory and survival victory, or do you kind of choose between the two? And if you do choose between the two, what is the determining factor between like going for survival and going for ball victory?
Ultimately, it depends on my opponent's interaction.
When you say interacting with you, do you just mean discard pile banishing?
No, discard pile banishing, interacting, like just banishing or destroying cards on your board.
Like Hurry Quest, for example? Like if you're playing Namekian and they keep bouncing your balls?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, that is an example, but it doesn't really worry me that much. Trunk Sword Slash, and they banish my power-ups and my blocks from my discard pile. If they're critting my Dragon Balls. The kinds of things that kind of are disrupting my gameplay. It really does depend. Typically, survival and ball victory kind of go hand in hand. If I'm down in the game, I'm going to start thinking DBV as more of a way out, which is great. It's a great backdoor victory. If I'm getting smashed by a Broly or Turtle deck and I'm down 40 cards, but okay, fine, cool. I'll just try my best to ball out. It kind of comes down to, what am I drawing? Am I getting the draws I need for DBV? Am I getting that Slumber out late game to where I can set up my next 1, 2, 3 turns to cater to a ball victory? I've done it plenty of times where I Slumber, top deck all the balls I need in the right sequence. Like ball 3, card 1, then ball 5 is card 4, and then ball 7 is card 2, like whatever.
So why don't you give us just final thoughts on the deck overall? We kind of already talked about the level 4. You don't get there too much, and when you get there, go for MPPV. Like that's it. Try not to get there, but if you get there, you have to have MPPV in mind, or have 6 balls in play with a radar in your hand.
Absolutely. The level 4 is a big liability, but overall, final thoughts. It's not a beginner's deck. The deck is powerful. It has a lot of tools at its disposal, but you can't take them for granted. There are a lot of decisions to be made. What are you going to backstrike for? What are you going to put in your hand for Slumber? Are they going to block Corruption, the cards you top deck? Are they going to mill you? Are they going to put the Dragon Ball you need to the bottom of your life deck? And like these are things that you have to consider. I love the deck. I love the slow thinking, decision making, chess match play style. That's what I do.
All right, man. Well, that's why I wanted to do this list. This is a great deck, and as I said before, if a deck is annoying to play against, and you know it's a good deck, so thank you for joining me today to do this deck profile video. Can we be expecting a Cell Jr. deck profile video from you?
I need to get back into that. I would like to, but then I see what Kevin is doing with the Broku deck, and it's like the junior deck isn't going to be better than that.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Maybe it'll take some more tweaking or some more work. Or hey, maybe we'll have a conflict drill queue in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I like it. All right, man. Well, thanks for joining us again, and thank y'all for watching this video. Try out this deck and make all your friends hate you. Please don't hesitate to hit that like button if you like this video, and as always, turn your dial to Random Number Gaming for weekly updates for the Dragon Ball Z card game.